Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular called board meeting for Tuesday, August 16th at 5 p.m. There is an agenda in front of us. Are there any recommended changes to the agenda?
No recommended changes.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda for today?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Cleveland.
Second.
Second by Ms. Morrissey. All in favor? The agenda motion passes. Is there a motion to go into executive session for personnel?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Cleveland.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lindsay Adams. All in favor? A motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Cleveland. Is there a second by Ms. Light? All in favor? We are out of executive session. Is there a motion to approve personnel A, 1 through 9, B, 1 through 27, and C, 1 through 3?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Cleveland, second by Ms. Morrissey. All in favor? I want to welcome everyone to our regular called board meeting for Tuesday, August the 16th at 6 p.m. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a consent agenda. Has everybody had the opportunity to review the consent agenda? And are there any questions for the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Ms. Adams,
Second.
second by Mr. Cleveland. All in favor? Consent agenda approval. The first item on our discussion is our finance report with Mr. Larry Hamill. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing? So tonight, we are going to present the July 2022 financial statements. As always, we try to keep goal 3 in mind, a strategic plan. For the month of July 31st, 2022, we start off the cash balance of $111.5 million. The receipts are at 27, cash disbursements almost $40 million. We ended the month with about $99.3 million. This time last year was about 79.8. Year-to-date report for revenue detail. As you can see, the budget going down across from left to your right. We have the month of July collections, 26.3, year-to-date, 26.3. And we're at 4.43% collections. Last year, we're about 4.79, so we're a little bit behind last year, but nothing to be worried about. Year-to-date budget report for expenditures, going from left to right, budget, midterm, year-to-date. As you can see, we're spent $43.8 million. We have about $10 million in encumbrances. Currently, we're at a spend rate of about 9.2, and we were exactly 9.26% last year. So we're right on schedule. Debt service cash analysis. So on this one, you'll see debt service is 44.9. Last year we were at 33, so the debt service account is building up like we predicted going forward. The SPLOST 5 account is at 50.9. Last year is 52.7. We have the money from the last collections of that. That money will be used for the different projects we had talked about in the past. SPLOST 5 Treasury Market, we will be closing that out pretty soon, so there'll be zero. And the one thing that is new is the SPLOST 6 collections of $14.9 million for the first 3 months. We are at 100+% collection rate. So just know that we are collecting every single dollar we have predicted, and we're a little ahead of schedule as well on that. Special revenue funds, only activity we have is the activity for the month of July. We haven't got all the budgets finalized yet through the state of Georgia that put in here, and that will be updated in the following months. Capital projects, the capital project fund has about $30 million in it. Last year was about 31, and currently the school food service has 17.3. As you can see, we are back to normal activity. Of course, July, there's really no activity in there. There's a little bit of collection money that came from the previous month that we had requested as we closed out the year, and that was about $76,000. As you can see, we spent about $785,000. Most of that money is for inventory, supplies, getting ready for school to open. And right now, our fund balance sits at 17.3. The fund balance is high due to us having all that free and reduced money we got in the previous year and a half. We're back to sales only this year, so we will be collecting sales funds this year. We're about 15.96% free and reduced. The rest of it is sales. So you'll see those different revenue amounts going forward. Unlike it was previously, we were getting all free and reduced. And we do have a plan to spend down this fund balance over the next several years.
What was the percentage of free and reduced lunch right now?
It's about 15.9.
15.
And the window for that closed, is that correct, or is the deadline already been met?
It closed June 30th, the free and reduced for everybody. Starting July 1st, this coming fiscal year, we have to go back to the amount of free and reduced you have versus everybody else that has to pay.
Right,
Correct.
but the deadline for
For citizens applying to be
Yes.
eligible for free and reduced.
Still taking
We're still
applications.
taking applications, correct, yes.
okay,
So
but
we're
it's
kinda-
coming up, I think.
Yeah, so it's kind of, this is going to be a rough year to kind of, we really don't know what the numbers are going to be because people need to apply. And even with that, we're going to be selling and we don't know, like, a lot of people probably enjoyed having it last year. So it'll be interesting to know what our normal sales for people just buying lunches in general.
Speak to that a little bit.
It's got to be hard to predict.
You want me to do it?
No, I
It's
just-
already higher. It's already higher
but I
than
mean-
pre-COVID. It's already
Yeah,
higher.
so like, I'm curious whether students who were used to having lunches last year who don't have a need for free and reduced will continue buying them because they enjoy the service,
One out of my four
which could
are
affect.
are staying on the school meal.
So
He
be-
loves it.
So it just be, food service will be interesting to see how that progresses throughout the year.
There was certainly some confusion the first couple of days of school because as much as it was on the media and stuff like that, folks were just assuming it was still free for everybody. So it took a little bit of time to adjust. And we're making sure, eligible people have the opportunity to apply for free or reduced services if they meet that income criteria. And so Tim and his team is getting that information out because we certainly want people who are eligible to be able to take advantage of that.
It would be a year of transition though, for sure. Interesting.
Investment summary, as you can see, we have $102.8 million in investments. This time last year was 126. One thing I do want to point out is if you look at the 306 fund, your third fund from the right, we got about $590 left in there. This time last year, we had 45. So that shows you we've pretty much spent down the 2018-20 bonds, and that all those programs are almost completely done, and we're doing the finishing up on all that, and we should be shutting that program down. SPLOST 4 next to it does have a little bit of money left, and there's a few small projects out there, and we're trying to finish those up as well this year and get that closed as well. And the 354 is the SPLOST 5 money. That's the money we have sitting out there that we finished collecting, and we're just waiting for those projects to come along and be finished. We're going to close down the 354 fund in a little while. And of course, 352 is the new SPLOST 6 fund. You'll be seeing that going forward every month. Any questions?
Any questions?
All right, so here's the final collections on the SPLOST 4. We just want to show it to you one more time before we discontinue this slide. So the final collections was $213,037,093.48 over a 60-month period. Actually, I take that back. It was 57 because we were short that one quarter. And currently, here's what you can see right now. We've collected $14.9 million. 4.8, 4.9, and 5.1. You can see the previous change from the previous years is at about a 7-9% rate. In actuality, we are about $2.5 million ahead of schedule for the first 3 months on what we actually collected versus what we actually budgeted. Cash and disbursements for elementary schools. The ending balance for the month was $4 million. This time last year it was 3.68. The receipts and disbursements were normal for this time period. Middle school balance was 1.6. Last year was 1.48. The receipts and disbursements are normal for this time of the year. And the high school balance is $5 million. It was exactly almost $5 million last year at the same time. Same thing, receipts and disbursements are normal. And currently, the high schools make up 47%. The fund balance, your elementary is 38, and your middle school is 15, and that's almost exactly what it was last year as well. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the board policy BCBI, public participation in board meetings with
Good
Ms.
evening.
Jennifer Caracciolo.
Before you, you have what is the result of Senate Bill 588, which amended Article 3 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, thus requiring us to revise our current policy for public participation. The attached revision removes a portion of the text into the now required rules of conduct. So this is the policy. It will sit on our website for a month to get some public feedback, and we will come back to you in September for approval.
And the next item will be the rules of conduct for the board policy BCBI, public participation.
This is new. Annually, you will have to adopt a rules of conduct. For this year, we have to have it approved by October 1st. Moving forward, it will be August 1st. So this, again, is a result of Senate Bill 588. It requires that each Board of Education shall adopt a rules of conduct for public meetings of the local Board of Education, and that we must display it on our website. Such rules shall include provisions for the removal of members of the public for actual disruption of a meeting of the local Board of Education. And that is pretty much a summary for the rules of conduct, which will also be placed on the website for public feedback, and we will come back to you in September.
Any questions?
As is true with any policy that's driven by a legislative decision, obviously this is written by our board attorney in consultation with Georgia School Boards Association. So this will be a very standard policy that you'll see throughout the entire state. I think you'll see a lot of uniformity around that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I guess you got the next item for our action items, which would be the focal lighting.
Correct. Whenever we built Focal, we set aside some of the funds from the 2018 bond because it's just like a house. Once you live in it, there's things that you need to add. And one of the things that came back from our users and also our staff is to make some additions to the lighting. And so what you have before you is a proposal that we placed online to get bids. We sent it out to 10 vendors and 4 responded. And the lowest responsible and responsive bidder is from Barbizon Lighting for $157,000 and 157,401.96. I'll get it exactly there. So these additions will allow our staff to not have to go up to the heights. Right now, we have to rent a scissor lift, and those individuals have to go up. You see how high the ceilings are at Focal. And then additionally to that, we also are adding a hazer, and that will increase some of our lighting functions too. And so this bid is just for lighting equipment, which we already have set aside from the 2018 bond. And then as far as installation, it will be done by our Focal technician.
Okay, with that, I'd recommend approval.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the focal lighting bid?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Cleveland. Second by Ms. Light. All in favor? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is our points of information, and I do believe that Ms. Lindsay Adams has something she would like to talk about.
Yeah, so the study committees that came out of the last legislative session started to occur around 1st of August. This week, on Friday, August 19th, for Senate Resolution 650, the Senate Study Committee will meet from 1 to 4 down at the Capitol Room 450, or you can watch it online. And what they're going to do, the study committee is to review education funding mechanisms. So likely it'll they'll look at the current QB formula and see if there's any recommendations that they can prepare for potential legislature for 2023. So, because there are things like counselors and different social services and different things that we've talked about and discussed that a lot of the local funds are having to piggyback on that the state. So they're hoping that they can hopefully increase, funding for that. So we'll see, potentially changes.
All right, thank you. Any other points of information?
Just have to thank you. Several of you were at the meeting this morning when we received the federal grant for our Spark campaign, $750,000 from the federal government, which will help us provide wraparound services to students and families in need in our community. So that was very much appreciated, and thank all of you for your support on that grant. Today was day 9 for our students. Currently, around 53,300 kids in our school system. Registration has slowed down some. We still have folks scheduled over the next week or so, but we're starting to settle in a little bit. And as you know, typically registration stays quite busy up until Labor Day as families move here from other parts of the country. But right now, about 53,300, which is pretty much what we anticipated where we would be when the school year started. I would not be surprised if by the end of this school year, we're not close to 54,000, if that trend continues as it has over the past several years. Other than that, that's it.
I just want to echo and say thank you to the staff for working on that Spark program. Working with the homeless youth in Forsyth County over the last 3 years, you learn a lot, and they have different challenges than most of us ever realize. And this Spark program will help allow them to remove some of those barriers so they can actually get to school and have the resources that normal students have. And so I'm very excited about that, and it helps it. And I want to say that I think at the end of last school year, we had a little over 880 homeless youth that we were working with in our community. And so that was big for us to get that grant this morning to help. So thank you to the staff for putting all that together, because applying for that grant is not easy. So thank you for that.
I'd like to share just a quick update from the Drug Council. I mean, we were able to get a second counselor this year through some funding we received through a grant. And so we've now hired a second counselor on a contract basis at North High. And we'll be starting to roll the program out that we're already doing over at Gateway. So we'll see how that works and bring more back to you on that later. The leader of the Drug Council is also leaving. We also have a interim leader, Rachel Caden, and I know her very well, so she's going to be taking over the Drug Council going forward for this year. So those are my updates.
Just one more thing on that grant. I know that we expressed our frustration about how some of the federal funds have gone out, and I just know that when we were approached about the opportunity for that grant last year, there was a very short turnaround time, but I really feel like that was a great example of how the federal funds should have been handed out. Not only did we had a short turnaround to show the data and the reasons why we needed that, and I know from the years that we had, it wasn't an idea we created. That was something that we had on a list from our Beyond Propel, our original Propel initiative, where we had needs of people who needed the services, and particularly transportation to get to the services. And so it was something we had on our to-do list, and it gave us an opportunity. And I wish that more systems had to go through the process that we did of proving a need, showing a plan, and having the facilities to provide it, and then being able to hopefully sustain it after the grant runs out. So this is the way federal funds, in my mind, should be handed out, proving a need, showing a need, and being able to take care of it and to sustain it. So
It's one of the few grants we were actually eligible to apply for. Typically, we are not eligible because we live in such an affluent community, and most of it's based upon community ability to pay. And so the fact that there were funds available and we were able to apply for that grant and then receive that grant, I'm really excited because, as I said this morning, you know, we have a 15% poverty rate in our school system, and while percentage-wise it doesn't sound very large, that equates to over 7,000 kids that we're serving in Forsyth County schools. And so we're going to be able to use that money to really make sure that those students, their families, get the additional resources and support they need to access their learning. So it's going
it was about
to be huge for us.
$750,000,
$750,000, yeah.
a lot different than the hundreds of millions of
Right.
dollars other counties
True.
got just for being there.
True.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the public participation portion. Before we begin, I want to highlight 6 sections of our public participation policy. Meetings of the Board of Education are held to conduct the affairs of business of the school system. Although these meetings are not meetings of the public, the public is invited to attend all meetings, and citizens are invited to address the board at all regular meetings. All remarks shall be made to the board as a body and addressed through the chair. Remarks shall not be addressed to individual board members. Personnel issues involving individual employees, issues involving individual students, and pending litigation are not subjects for public participation. Speakers are asked to keep their remarks civil. Any profane, rude, defamatory remarks and personal attacks will not be allowed. The chairman of the board is responsible for enforcing this policy, and speakers who are found in violation will have their allotted speaking time immediately concluded. By reading and acknowledging the acceptance prior to speaking during public participation, speakers attest that they understand and will abide by this policy. Failure to abide by this policy may result in forfeit of the right to participate in future board meetings. As of always, over the last couple of months, our word for the night is respect. When you come up to the podium, we have two speakers tonight. Both of you understand the new device we have in place for speaking. You'll have 3 minutes for the green. When it starts to flash, you have 30 seconds left, and then when the light turns red, your time is up. So I think our first speaker tonight is Mr. Jerry Kerschel. Thank you.
My name is Jarek Rochelle. At our last meeting, we heard an impassioned plea for more indoctrination in our schools and libraries, insisting that the board was here to serve our students. This may sound like a perfectly reasonable statement, but we have to be very careful. Our schools may be the place where our students learn and grow, but schools, administrators, teachers, and staff are in service to parents, not children. And of course, there is a reason for this. Children may very well be able to express their needs, even at their youngest ages. They may cry for food or a diaper change or for attention, but you don't expect an infant to know the best way to get food from the store to the fridge to the bottle and finally to their mouth. The what question is a question that children can help us answer. The how is a question that children simply don't have the experience or wisdom to judge. This isn't to say that there aren't immature adults or very mature children. Exceptions abound in the wide swath of humanity. But there really is no evidence that the brave, dutiful children who have come here to speak to the board these many months actually have the wisdom to share on the how. The three whats that were defined last month were improve mental health, increase feelings of safety, and reduce bullying on the basis of identity. The first two whats are great. We all want students to be more resilient and mentally healthy, and we all want students to feel safe from violence, hypersexualization, and abuse. But the third what exposes a lack of wisdom. We want to reduce all bullying, not just one type of bullying. The child who is being tormented simply because a bully was in a bad mood that day is no less worthy of help than a child who is being tormented because they wore a MAGA hat to school. We can improve mental health without leftist diversity, inclusion, and equity programs. In fact, those regions of our country that have pushed these programs the most have the worst mental health outcomes. The rate of transgender identification, self-harm, and suicide within leftist jurisdictions is significantly higher than in all other areas. While nobody doubts that leftist adults and children want better mental health, the evidence actually shows that their ideas make things worse. This also goes for school safety and bullying. The most violent schools are in cities dominated by leftist governments. Policies put in place in the name of diversity, inclusion, and equity have included giving violent students more lenient punishments depending on their skin color. This gutting of disciplinary power in some regions has led to attacks not only on students, but teachers and staff as well. Again, nobody doubts that our leftist adults and children want safer schools, but the evidence actually shows that their ideas make things worse. Now, I don't doubt that there are children in our schools who are suffering. Their stories of bullying and struggles with mental illness are certainly sincere and real, but their prescription for fixing these problems is poison, not medicine. We cannot stop being victims by wallowing in our victimhood. We cannot unify our diverse population by dividing people up into skin color, religion, or sexual preference. And we cannot improve our safety by encouraging a lack of personal responsibility. I would like to thank the board, again, for its strong focus on giving our children what they need rather than what they simply want, and for understanding that our schools serve the parents of students first and foremost. Thank you very much for your time, and I'd love to have lunch with anyone who disagrees with me.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Patricia Wall.
Good evening. Did you know most everyone and I who have spoken before this board do not believe that our First Amendment rights have ever been violated and that the policy set by the Board of Education applies unilaterally to everyone without favor or exception? We respect the rules for decency and the opportunity for public discourse. Did you know that the term Mama Bears is a copyrighted name for a network of groups, websites, and resources dedicated to supporting parents of LGBTQ kids and the LGBTQ community. Did you know? We, the Forsyth Coalition for Education, are remaining vigilant when it comes to library books and students and their First Amendment rights to choose the books from their libraries. When we suggest to parents who oppose these freedoms that they engage in conversations with their children about reading choices that align with their family's values, their response is often that their children will just do the opposite anyway. Well, how is it that our children's intellectual freedoms are held hostage by their poor parenting? We will continue to monitor how challenge books are handled in compliance with state law, and we are pleased that the new law limits challenges to parents of a student in a school where the challenge is being made. And did you know, we saw your new initiative of acts of routine kindness, and we believe that the classroom sign, this one, and you have one in your packet, it's a very innocuous sign, that some people see that as a threat. Please don't let those negative people ruin your work to make our schools inclusive for everyone. Did you know? We continue to support the board's decision to include social and emotional learning in the 5-year strategic plan. And speaking of social and emotional learning, I've given you a copy of a propaganda sheet that was placed on Facebook to a local community group that includes their interpretation of SEL, such as it has origins in the occult, is emotionally abusive, and other such nonsense. You may also be interested in the copy of a self-described cheat sheet called Responding to Social Justice Rhetoric. Cheat sheets are for people who have absolutely no idea what any of the concepts mean, so they have to rely on someone else to feed it to them rather than thinking for themselves. That's a dangerous path and something that we certainly do not want modeled for our students. And finally, we are thankful for Sheriff Freeman's confirmation that the concealed carry law does not include schools and other school buildings unless the carrier is a certified law enforcement officer. Just saying, in case anyone here believes that they can carry a concealed weapon in this building or in any of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you to both of you for being respectful and following the rules. I do believe that concludes this board meeting. Is there anybody, a motion to adjourn? So moved. So moved by Ms. Light. Second by Ms. Adams. All in favor?